and I'm going to kick it off and get going. So let me just introduce myself real quick. I am Ed LaRiviere. I'm the product manager for Fab and MEP here at Microdesk Symmetry. I've been heavily involved with automation and BIM adoption over the years, and I've seen all those struggles firsthand. Microdesk Symmetry also noticed these struggles and decided to band together to fix them. So I'm here to share that with everyone. So while I'm sharing that with all of you, if you pop up with any questions, if there's anything you want to see more, anything at all like that, you'll notice down in the chat there is either a chat or a questions. Feel free to go to either of those if you need to make a comment. That would be a great place to put it. I will work our way through the demo here, and right at the end of that, we'll go review any questions or comments that have popped up and look at those together as a group. All right, so for anyone who hasn't seen Naviate before, just a real quick overview of what Naviate is. So Naviate is one product line for all trades. It's one team that you're working with. It's really just one solution for all the workflows. We have one entire ecosystem through Revit, Cloud, and Civil 3D, for all your Autodesk products. Just noting that Cloud is BIM 360 and ACC. So we are just Naviate. So to be a little bit more specific, we do have products across the board. That does include a general product for everyone, and then some specific products for architecture, structure, MEP, site and landscape fabrication, and our other product, Cloud Manager, over there. So before we fully jump into the live demo here, I do want to add a reminder that I will be focusing on the fabrication suite of commands. Now, this webinar specifically is to look at new features, but I do want to remind you that I've already leveraged Naviate to set up my model, and this model is in full-blown production at this point. If you're wondering how you can use Naviate to speed up project setup or any of the other workflows you're seeing up here, I'd recommend tuning into one of our other webinars or reaching out and we can get something set up to show you everything that you have access to. So today we will be covering two main groups for the what's new, and those are going to be modeling and detailing. This is really where fabrication exists anyway. So on the modeling side, we're going to take a look at the tap commands, some multi-elbow routing, and some improvements we've added to the bloom command. When we move over to the detailing side, we're going to take a look at some updated hanger workflows, some updated sleeve workflows, some additions to tagging, improvements to points, improvements to sync parameters, and improvements to Spool Manager. We've got a lot of stuff to look at today. And with that, let's just move over to Revit here. So big note, I am absolutely using fabrication ITM parts here as we move through fabrication. You'll catch I've got that MEP fabrication parts over here. A quick reminder for everyone, anything we see up here in the fabrication ribbon for modeling commands, these are for ITM parts. If you're tuning in and you're using Revit parts and you want to see some modeling, I would recommend taking a look at MEP. This is designed for those base Revit families. That out of the way, let's take a look at some of the new stuff we've got in here. So I had mentioned we have some cool new tap commands. Let's take a look at those things and let's just get ourselves in a 3D space so we can do it the fun way. If we pop up this way and we want to take a look at maybe doing a little bit of tapping, we'll find out that there is a new button added to the end of those elbow commands, and we'll find that tap command. Tap allows us to go left, right, or up and down in a 3D or a 2D view, just to make it a bit easier to start from that center point of an element, not necessarily having to drag, drop, rebloom, none of that. So for a left, right, we're just choosing the spot we want to go from and then clicking to the left or right of the pipe so it knows which way we're going. Clicking way up there, we get that extension immediately coming out. It's really easy to then link that together with something like a rotate fitting to turn that up some other place we may need to work with. Just make sure you are getting all of those elements when you use a rotate fitting there, and you won't have any problems. We also do have a tap up down as well to let you go out the top or out the bottom. This one does not require that second click. Just choosing the spot you want to tap and getting that extension out. Remember, anytime we do an up or a down, we always make sure those items are vertical. So this is a very easy way to make sure that you are getting vertical elements coming out. After that, I also mentioned, if we come back, we've got some cool little multi-elbow routing. Let's go take a look at some of that multi-elbow routing. So again, multi-elbows, this is a 2D or a 3D workflow. If I'm taking a look and we see some of these elements over here, maybe I know these just need to all turn up at the same time. You can grab as many elements as you want now, and then using those commands over in fabrication, and in fact, these do exist for MEP as well. So for MEP users, you will also have multi-elbow. We can just go ahead and choose the command we want, and we'll see all of those elements go ahead and run up. Now, what's exceptionally cool here, you'll notice it's maintaining that spacing, but what if we work with something that maybe doesn't have that spacing? And let's jump to a 2D view to see exactly what's going to happen down here. Grabbing all those elements, if I want to maybe turn an elbow right, I don't even actually have to click the commands. We can just use the keyboard shortcuts here. Running elbow to the right, you'll notice it gives me all those elements, and it's actually maintained that selection as well. So it's very easy for me to do a quick drag, or if I even want to just use the move command to move these to where they belong, we can then immediately link something in like elbow to the left afterwards. And then maybe we want to take those again and do an elbow to the right. So not only is it maintaining that selection for us, it's letting us do all of this together, and we can kind of rough in a bit of a rack and then just do a few move commands to get those in the exact locations. Now, this does work with that 2 elements, 1 element, however many elements you're working with. If you need to turn them up, you can grab them both, turn them up, and keep running with the other ones. So multi-elbow routing brought in, carried through any of the elbow commands that we are working with. After that, as we look at modeling, the other major update we have here is related to the bloom command. Now, I know we've all seen that bloom command in the past here, and that bloom command gives us a little extension coming out of an element. So going to a flange like that, we could bloom the flange out. Going to a larger piece of equipment, we could bloom that larger piece of equipment out. Now, what we're actually allowing you to do at this point, down underneath fab routing, we previously had a very small window for those bloom settings. We have really expanded these bloom settings out to cover pretty much any situation you can run into. As we jump in and take a look at this, you will see for each type of element we work with, like fab duct, containment, we go in, map out the standard Revit connectors, and allow you to go ahead and choose what your matching service is going to be. You can also choose what work set we're going to drop these things onto. And if you don't even want to bloom something, maybe you're not even working with anything but supply air, we can just ignore those. We can do the exact same thing for pipe containment as well. Maybe we're not doing any pipe at all today. We can turn all the pipe off and just stop blooming pipe work. Don't even worry about it. So bloom has a whole bunch of expanded commands. And just to point it out, for anyone that's used to the old settings here, all the old settings are still maintained. You can still choose your pipe bloom length. You can still choose your pipe elbow length. And you can still choose whether or not your elbow commands maintain slope. We have allowed you, though, to go ahead and specify that maintain slope for each different system type rather than having it be universal. So Bloom has brought in this giant set of settings so you can do really specific mapping as well. And that's what we have over here for just some of that basic modeling, right? This is just getting some content into our program, getting this stuff set up, letting us start to work with it. Remember, all of these commands do link in with all the other commands we've been working with as well. If you want to see how any of these other commands work, I recommend opening up and checking out one of those previous videos. All right, jumping down to detailing. We're not going to follow detailing in the exact list that was shown there. We're going to kind of move around and take a look at a few different things. Now, the first thing I would like to take a look at is the sync parameters. So sync parameters is a button that's existed up here for a while. In the previous version, this button kind of stopped doing stuff because we moved everything over to the sync parameters pane. And we'll see that in the fab properties pane in the top left. We have expanded the functionality here quite a bit, making it a bit easier to manage it. So at this point, if I do decide I need something, maybe I do need that origin location synced. We can add that origin location, but now you'll see not only do we have the option to sync that shared parameter, I also have the option to remove it. So if it does turn out I don't need one of those values, from right inside the fabrication properties, we can ask stuff to not sync and just remove it so it's no longer syncing. Now, also, instead of having to click that equals for each item we're working with, we can absolutely just jump up, and there's a nice sync all button waiting for us right at the top of that fab properties. Now beyond that sync all, we even took this sync fab parameters and we made that a sync all. So if you are leveraging these parameters pretty heavily, using them all over the place, you could even keyboard shortcut those fab parameters so you can just sync those things immediately. And those are the updates that we are seeing and those advancements we're seeing in that show and hide pane. Jumping up, I mentioned another quick one related to some of that detailing was one of the tag settings. So let's take a look at some of the tag settings updates we have. Anyone using tagging before, you may be familiar with creating a profile, giving that profile a name and a category. I'm going to go grab some fab duct here. We'll give it a quick name. And previously, this is all we were stuck with. You could only assign it to a piece of ductwork. What we're actually allowing you to do now is go into the subcategories of that fabrication ductwork and get only specific things that you need to work with. So if you are only trying to tag your straights, you don't want to accidentally tag anything else, we can come in here, select just those straights. We've got that top of duct elevation. And if we want to come down and test that out, grabbing a few elements here, we will notice only the straights have been tagged. If we want those tags going different ways, right, it's always the same it's always been. We can adjust the orientation, or we can adjust the tag itself so it's not set to read only. The big news is right up here in the top right, we can specify different layouts for different subcategories so that we can go ahead and have multiple MEP fabrication ductwork or MEP fabrication pipework setups, all dependent on what it is you're tagging. All right, that would be our updated tagging. From there, we're moving into some hangers, some sleeves, and some spool. The real heavy hitters from the far right-hand side here. I think we're going to go ahead and start out with some of these hangers and take a look at all of the updated hanger and hanger point workflows that we've brought in. To do that, I'm going to hop us into a 3D view, and let's take a look. Let's go ahead and update that 3D view there. And there we go. We're going to go ahead and work with some of the ductwork over this way. So to place those hangers is the same process. There has been no real changes to our hanger array configurations. Whatever you have set in here should be able to be maintained. A quick note for anyone who is upgrading. In the process of doing this, we did change a little bit of the storage, so it may appear that your settings are gone. If you look in the drop-down, we do have the ability to reload those settings back in, so you don't actually lose anything. We can just reuse all the settings that are already here. So configurations is the same. The way we run it using hanger array is the same. Again, recommending a pre-selection to then run it. Running it on multiple elements is the same. Select those elements, make sure your links are visible, and go ahead and run those hanger arrays. And then we start getting into some of the stuff that would be brand new. If we take a look up here, we'll see that those couple were standard. Hanger trapeze had been here before, but we're starting to move into a new command down here. We have this nice little single hanger. So anytime we needed to place a single hanger before, you would have to actually jump in, go find your supports, find the correct one, and then place it. Or you'd have to run an array on a single element and not necessarily get, just one. You might wind up with two, depending on your settings. So we brought in single hanger. So on the location that you click, we will add a hanger that matches whatever your configuration is. So a very quick way to go ahead and just drop individual hangers as those individual hangers are needed. After that single hanger, we do have some updates to hanger rod extension. I'm going to go ahead and show just one of these workflows over here, but we did include quite a few other ones. So in that hanger rod extension, it's always going to be looking for us to go ahead and grab the hangers first. And I do want to kind of lay the scenario here. If we look, I've got some duct racks sitting on top of each other. If we click any of those rods, we'll see that both rods do extend the full height, even though they don't necessarily need to. Realistically, I think I'd rather the second rod end at the height of that other low rod, just so it shows as one individual element, not necessarily clashing elements. If we come in and go with that scenario, we can go ahead and use hanger rod extension, select the entire lower row of hanger rods, click finish, And then instead of detect elements above, I'm going to use select. So detect is pretty good, works about 90% of the time, but select is going to be a guarantee that you get exactly what you choose. We also, if you want to select and then make adjustments to rod lengths on top of auto adjusting, you can do that as well. You notice we've got the same attached to structure as before, the ability to set rod lengths like before, but we brought in the new ability to work based on elements above. And that's really the big deal here. So leaving it to select, clicking OK. I can zoom in, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab the top rod for everything that I am working with. All right, I grabbed that entire row right across, clicking OK here. It'll think for a second. If we go and look, we'll notice every single one of those hangers automatically adjusted to that new height. No measurements needed, no extra work. Just go ahead and tell these two things to adjust, and they will adjust down for you to those new heights. That is our update sitting inside hanger rod extension. Just like before, if you do an extension on a singular rod, we do maintain swap rod lengths. And that's really what we've got over here for hangers. Now, built on top of hangers, anyone over here using points, we have some other cool stuff for points here. So jumping in, if we want to go ahead and place those points down, that hanger points button has moved over to fab points here in the top right, and we'll use that command to place those points. Before I place them though, I want to point out something else. We do have a little arrow here that will bring us to the same place as this arrow here, right back to those fabrication settings. Now, I showed off the first three tabs here for containment, pipe, and duct. There's a fourth tab here related to these hanger point exports. What we were actually able to do here is start mapping together parameters that may exist on my hanger that I want to exist within my points, so that later on, if I want to export those parameters out, I can export them out as well. So we're going to go ahead and just take a look at syncing some of those parameters across. Maybe something I really care about is this hanger bill of material point name, or maybe I want to add something new to my hanger real quick. So maybe we go take a look at these upper row of hangers here. I want to go into my fabrication show pane, pick something out that I think is pretty relevant, like maybe the service name. So we've now brought service name over. We've officially sunk the service name value. If we go look at that hanger, we'll see that BimmerX DBS service name showing up. From there, if we go right back up to our hanger points, take a look at the points export there, we'll now see that DBS service name showing up as well, which we can add to our points now and have a point sync value created as well. From there, let's go ahead and place those points down. Now, I'm selecting just the top row. If I wanted both rows, I could choose both of them, but I don't necessarily know that I want points at these midpoints here. So I'm going to just choose those upper elements instead. Clicking finish, we'll see all those points get dropped and placed. If we go take a look, some of these you might not be able to see just due to the height there. Lifting it up, there's the rest of them. Grabbing the element, great. Just like before, if these things move around, our points will continue to move. If we go up and take a look at those points, we get some really cool things happening here. So a big note for everyone, these new point updates do work in projects you've already placed your points. And there is workflows if you have someone on an old version and a new version that will allow them to work together. If you do run into that situation where half of your office is upgraded and half is not, I would recommend reaching out to us so we can help explain a bit further. But we do support both sitting together, and doing it that way does support both of you having the same data across multiple versions. The big deal though, you'll catch that we were able to map that service type from our hanger to our point with that value now existing within that point, which means we can map it to an export, either using the total station export and building out our own custom export mapping with parameters to be exported, or by generating a regular old Revit schedule of points and including those parameters there as well. But it is very easy to get those parameters in and to have those syncing to our points. And again, you'll remember our points do get individual names and individual locations here as well. So anyone looking for an X, Y, Z, these are split up now instead of included in an individual parameter. And that's really what we've got over here for our hanger points updates. So hangers have had quite a bit of stuff brought into them, quite a bit related to the tracking and data updates as well. From there, I'd like us to go ahead and take a look at sleeves, which has also had an impressive amount of updates added to it. Jumping into those sleeves, first thing you'll notice is we do still have the options, wall sleeves, and floor sleeves. Though floor sleeves have been included to now work with roofs as well. So if you do have a roof element, floor sleeves will be able to place it. We also have blockout sleeves available, so we can select multiple elements and place a sleeve blockout. And we do also have manual sleeves to cover those situations where there may not be an architectural model showing that a sleeve is required yet, but we know that that sleeve is needed. Let's go ahead and take a look at how these sleeve commands work. So coming up this way, I've got a few situations here, maybe a few things we want to look at, and we're going to use these sleeve commands a few different ways. The first thing we're going to do, though, is start from sleeve options. So sleeve options was expanded. We maintained the original size mapping for wall and floor, the same way it's been maintained all the way through. Totally up to you to modify and specify these as you want. Now, what we have added as well is some pipe and duct mapping over here. Now, what's extra cool about the sleeve placement mapping as we're seeing it, we are able to choose a link, choose a default sleeve type, and then know that that default sleeve type will be placed as we work. We can also go ahead and say for a round element, we might want to place a rectangular sleeve. So anyone placing rectangular sleeves on round elements who's maybe been making their stuff a little bit funky right now, we fully support that now. Entirely possible for you to just use a rectangular sleeve. Additionally, beyond just using the two that we provide, if you want to come down and define some new sleeves, you are more than welcome to. Go find the BIMRX accessories. For pipe, it'll be pipe. For duct, it'll be a duct accessory. And you can go ahead, maybe I want to do this round one here. You can go ahead and duplicate these things and give them new names. So this would be where you really start getting your manufacturer specific, putting some of those more specific details in. As long as the family name is maintained, you can do whatever you want for the types. Jumping right back up to those sleeve options, we can jump right into pipe mapping and do something extra cool here. So maybe I want the sleeve round to be my default for everything. But for that architectural model, if I deal with a typical partition wall, I'd actually like it to place a Hilti sleeve instead. So knowing that we've got a default set and then a specific set, let's go ahead and see what happens when we place some of these sleeves on these pipes. So a real quick look in the background here will tell us that this wall here is a typical partition wall. Now, if we come up over this way, we might find that this is an exterior wall. So we'd expect the exterior wall to have a standard sleeve, and we'd expect the partition wall to go ahead and have our fancy Hilti sleeve. Let's go ahead and see what happens when we place sleeves on these elements. Going to these two first, up to fabrication, and running a wall sleeve command on these. We come up and take a look. The sleeves are placed full length of the wall, and we are getting that sleeve round, right? Because we did not specify anything for that outer wall. Let's come down into this inner wall here, and maybe we'll run it on two of these elements. Same process, wall sleeves, and we would expect these to come in with those Hilti sleeves, as Hilti was specifically mapped for this type of wall. And if you take a look, right there, we are getting that specific type Hilti showing up instead. So sleeve options is allowing us to specify based on wall types exactly what type of sleeve you're going to place. So if you want to go ahead and map special fire sleeves for a firewall, feel free. Standard sleeves for standard walls, feel free as well. And if you don't want to do any mapping whatsoever, you absolutely do not have to. Leaving everything as it is, not adding any mappings at all, we'll leave all of this command working the exact same way it used to, just based off of size mapping. Now, as clicking through, you may have also picked up the third pane over here, these sleeve parameters. We are just starting to allow you to actually get some sleeve parameter values brought in as well. The key note here is sleeve parameter values work very well, but they only work on placement. So let's go take a look at what I mean. If we go right back in to those sleeve options, take a look at our sleeve parameters here. We can choose a category in the top. So I'm going to work with Fab Pipe. Here's every parameter from Fab Pipe. So maybe something that I think I need is my fabrication service. I can add Fab Service as a sleeve parameter. I'm working with my Fab Pipe over here, so enabled to work on Fab Pipe, hitting apply, and we've added something to our sync list now. If we go take a look at one of these sleeves, we should see that that fabrication service name is now a value, but there is no data brought inside it. So the key note here is that we can absolutely bring data with our sleeves, but only on placement. This is not something that tracks afterwards as well. These sleeves maintain their location after placement. They are not tracking with your pipe. Currently, this is all by design. When you place a sleeve, generally it needs to stay there as it's already been placed in the field. Coming back though to see how those parameters will show up, doing wall sleeves this time, those same elements. After that sleeve has already been asked to track that parameter, we've specified it in the points. And coming back, we will see that that fabrication service is actually being filled out now. So we can actually just on placement automatically understand what service or really anything at all, right? Because it's all links to any parameter that exists in the pipe. Anything that we need to know about the service running through that sleeve, we can just map and start working with. And that is true of wall sleeves and the floor roof sleeves as well. After that, we do have the ability for manual sleeves. So if you have a location, maybe there's some weird thing sitting right here. If I just need to place a sleeve, you can always manually place a sleeve, and it's just up to you to go ahead and set the length, choose your spot, click finish, and we will get a standard sleeve placed in that location that you have selected. So the depth entirely up to you. And lastly, I want to take a look at those sleeve blockouts. Moving over this way, and maybe we can get a little bit of architecture showing in here as well. And we'll cut in a bit so we can really see what that blockout does. So I've got a few elements sitting over here. They're kind of zhuzhed around a bit, right? I likely would not want 3 separate sleeves for these. I'm probably going to go ahead and just place a blockout in a square to go ahead and represent all of those. So we are now able to select multiple elements, jump up to fabrication, and just place a sleeve blockout instead. Now, currently, that sleeve blockout's edge size, that is a hard-coded value just from the edge of the furthest right sides of any element. And we'll see that right here, right? This element's furthest to the right, there's our gap. Furthest north, there's our gap. This is furthest to the left, there's our gap. And this is furthest south, there's our gap. So if you do need anything additional on that, it's very easy to just go ahead and add a clearance parameter that just describes the outside edge as well. But it is able to pop in here and just place that down for us. No problem. There it is, ready and waiting to go. And from there, we have seen everything related to those sleeve options. So that covers our hangers. That covers our sleeves. And I believe the last thing I want to take a look at here is just some quick improvements that we brought into Spool Manager. These should be pretty quick. Now, Spool Manager still behaves the same way it has always behaved. I generally prefer to set these up in a 3D view, but really it's up to you how you want to make these things get created. But however you create your spools, everything is driven from an assembly. So we are auto-loading any of those elements in here. As those are loading in, we now have a quick little auto create up top. Auto create is pretty cool. It's letting us click an element on a run. So maybe I want to go ahead and auto create some spools. We can limit those down to specific sizing or specific weight limits now. So as it's running through, it's using those fabrication parameters to figure out if those fit. And then this is allowing us to go ahead and jump in, choose an element that starts on a run, choose an element that ends on a run. And it's going to go ahead and run through and break those up into however many assemblies are required for it to fit within those boxing sizes. Looks like we got lucky and we were able to do it in just about one assembly. So we have an auto create up here. Moving into options, we have a few new options we brought in as well. So the element tags in 3D views, if you are swapping between stuff often, can be a little bit annoying to jump to. You would generally have to go up to the annotate tab, go find it in here. We have now allowed you to immediately just open up those loaded tags and symbols from within Spool Manager, and then go right back and continue what you're doing. We've also brought in the ability down here to dimension 3D views. So let's go ahead and take a look at doing some 3D view dimensioning as well. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave these on a regular 3D view so we can see joints and everything. And we will continue to just auto dimension our 2D views. So big news up here is the inclusion of 3D views and the inclusion of the tag button. Hitting save and close here, we're good to run. We can jump right down in here, grab some elements we want to spool, jump in and create that spool. Showing up immediately as assembled, we can then grab that element. We'll see that spool waiting for us right there. Create our views like normal. And then open that spool up to take a look at what we got inside. So we get a little bit of overlap in here, right? There's definitely going to need to be a little bit of cleanup going on, but we can see that we've popped in, we've got a bunch of bubbles sitting in here, and we're also getting its best stab at doing dimensions, right? It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to go ahead and get us something in here that works, that at the very least we can edit, change, and move to a different location. Similar to before, we're still getting those 2D ones, and if one of these views doesn't work, you're always welcome to drag it off and pull something on that looks a little bit better instead. All right, and with that, we have made it through all of the new features that have been brought into Naviate Fabrication. Let's jump back to that PowerPoint there. So I do just want to remind you, Naviate is a bit more than a plugin. We are a whole community. So with Naviate, you've got access to a license portal, our blog, our ideation portal, help desk, e-learning, and e-store. So you don't want to just create products for you. We're trying to work with you. And just a little bit of info about each of these. The Symmetry license portal allows you to manage your licenses. So if anyone here has ever done BIMRX, you don't have to have us manage them, you can manage them. The Naviate blog has a whole bunch of tips and workflows for the different Naviate solutions. The ideation portal is where you can go in to add your ideas, upvote other people's ideas, and really determine what our future releases are going to include. You can connect and interact with other users in our community. And at our help desk, you can go ahead and see instructional videos and documents or connect with someone to give you a hand. In Pinnacle's e-learning, we do have guides for a lot of the Naviate products, and we will see fabrication and MEP showing up through the course of this year. And lastly, we do have the e-store to make it very easy to purchase if you'd like to, or again, you can always reach out to the sales team and they would be happy to hook you up as well. So you can see all of this and more at the naviate.com website. And if you go straight to Naviate for Revit, you'll get the best stuff possible. So don't forget to follow us on social media. We've got all of them. And I would like to go ahead and get started with our Q&A portion. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave this up here for you as well. So if anyone does need to reach out, there's our US number. There would be the email to reach out to. And if you're not US, we can absolutely hook you up with the correct person from any of these locations. All right. So checking the chat, I'm not seeing any questions in there. Checking the questions, I don't see any questions in there either. So unless you have a question, No questions? All right. Well, then thank you everyone for joining. And if you do have a question, you're welcome to hang around, type it in, or reach out to me directly. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day. Oh, looks like there is a question coming in here. Give me 1 second so I can read it. How did I do the 3D window from selection window? Well, I wish I could take credit for that and say that that was a nifty little Naviate tool, but I can't take credit. That is a built-in Autodesk command. So very quickly for you, if you're ever in a 2D view, over on the left, you'll see that you generally get a 3D view created for you that matches whatever email you're using to sign yourself in. So when you go ahead and click anything, or if you ever click the home button up here, you'll notice it auto takes you to whatever your personal 3D view is. So if you select some elements, there's a button up here called selection box. You need to select some elements first for it to work. But once you select them, it's just next to the modify commands. In selection box, we'll just consistently update that 3D view to the different locations and the different areas that you're working in. It's a really nifty way to just kind of update, get to the next spot that you need to do something, and then go ahead and just start doing whatever work you need to do at that point, right? So jump over here, do a little something, something over this way. Then use that align branch later to go ahead and, or rather, go, and then maybe use that selection box to now move me down to look at my ductwork afterwards, right? Grab some of those guys, do those, gets me down this way, and I can start working with these things. So really nifty command. I'm always going to recommend, if you're using it though, try to stick to the minimum amount of elements you need. It's really easy to go like one element further. And when I do that selection box, so I got that straight, you get a whole bunch more stuff. So generally recommending keeping it as at least a little bit tight. Oh, well, that's super unfortunate. My screen stopped sharing. Let's go ahead and see if we can get it. All right, here's to hoping you can see Revit, and I'm going to apologize and show you all that stuff again. So jumping right back into here, if we go right back down that selection box, that's just grabbing a few of these elements right down here. Once you've selected something, you jump to that modify window. Over on the left, you get that little selection box. Like I mentioned, it's right next to the modify tab. That selection box updates your standard 3D view and also moves you to your standard 3D view. Your standard 3D view is the one that's tied to your email account or whatever you sign into Revit with. And it's also the same one you get when you click the default 3D view button up above. So selection box just says select some elements. Click the selection box button, and we're going to update that 3D view to whatever the next thing is that you're trying to work on. For the parameters for hangers, I think we would need to look at the specific situation you are in. I cannot say I myself have tested the process for bringing preset parameter values from project to project. I don't know if it's impossible though. That might actually be one of the very few things you might be able to set up inside a template project to have carrying forward. So I do believe right now it works solely based on the name of the parameter, but that is something I would have to look a little bit deeper in for you. If you're talking about the hanger settings, like hanger array configurations, we are in the middle of working on a way for you to be able to bring that from job to job. So that is potentially coming soon. We are working on it very diligently. All right, any other questions? Chat, nothing in the chat. All right, if there's no other questions, we can wrap up, though I will wait a minute to see if you guys drop out before I close down this session on you. So, all right. Well, if there's nothing else, then thank you, everybody. You've got my contact info if you need it or you want to take a look, a bit deeper look. So, Jason, if you want to go chase that down and see exactly what that process is, please just reach out. And otherwise, thank you, everybody.